The first impact felt like hitting a deer. Heavy, solid, wrong. The infected came out of the intersection at full sprint and hit the brush guard's center mass. Steel absorbed most of it. The body folded under the bumper and rolled beneath the chassis. I didn't brake. Braking gets you surrounded. Forward, I said. The second one didn't chase us. It intercepted, burst from a side street ahead of our angle, and launched off a sedan hood before landing wrong against the grille. Its femur snapped on impact and drove upward through the lower slats before the body peeled away. The temperature gauge jumped, not climbed, jumped. Steam bled from the hood seam. Ethan screamed once, sharp, then silent. The third infected hit the passenger mirror and tore it clean off. Glass scattered across the pavement behind us. They weren't outrunning the truck. They were cutting angles, predicting path. I downshifted into third and cleared the intersection. Two more burst from between storefronts and sprinted at offset angles, forcing me to hold centerline. One clipped the rear quarter panel hard enough to fishtail us. Manual transmission means correction is mechanical. Clutch in, counter steer, throttle balance, clutch out. We held, but something underneath started grinding. Metal on metal. The bone lodged in the grill shifted when we hit a pothole. I felt it through the steering column. Coolant pressure dropped instantly. Steam thickened. Heat bled through the firewall. We had maybe 2 miles before seizure. Less if I pushed it hard. I pushed it hard. You don't limp when you're being hunted. Another infected dropped from a storefront awning and landed on the hood hard enough to spiderweb the windshield. Teeth scraped glass inches from Sarah's face before it slid off. She didn't scream. She ducked and stayed down. Good instinct. We cleared the last block of storefronts and entered open stretch before the tree line. That's when they adjusted. 3 came from the right, not behind, not chasing, intercept. They sprinted downhill through a parking lot and cut the road ahead. One misjudged and bounced off the side panel. The second hit square and rolled over the hood. The third reached for the driver's side window and caught only steel. If that window had been down, that would have been it. The femur in the grill rotated again, deeper. I heard it puncture something vital. The temperature needle buried itself past red. Steam poured now, not bleed, pour. The engine knock turned uneven, cylinder heat climbing fast. I downshifted to second. The truck protested. Clutch smell sharp and immediate. The gravel road into the tree line narrowed the angles they could use, but it also narrowed mine. Brush thick on both sides. No room for evasive steering. 2 burst from the brush ahead, timed perfectly with the bend. They weren't chasing, they were predicting. One vaulted the drainage ditch and struck low. The other came high and hit the hood seam again. The brush guard groaned under torque. Custom welded mount. Didn't matter. Bone beat steel. The steering wheel jerked left. Power assist lagged. For half a second, I thought we'd lost it. I corrected manually. Heavy. Manual transmission means no electronics to save you. 30 yards to clearing. The engine dropped 600 RPM without input. 25. Another infected launched from the left and hit the driver's side door hard enough to dent it inward. Sarah flinched. Ethan grabbed her sleeve. 20 yards. The engine coughed. I feathered throttle to keep it alive. 15. The brush guard tore partially free and dragged. Sparks beneath us. 10. The engine shuddered violently. 5. I killed ignition before seizure and shifted to neutral, letting momentum carry us. The truck rolled into the clearing and died. Steam exploded upward in a white wall. Metal ticking uneven as heat tried to normalize. No restart. Out. Sarah moved instantly. Good. Ethan unbuckled without hesitation. Better. We cleared passenger side. I grabbed rifle. Magazine check. 7 remaining. The first infected hit the truck at full sprint before we were 6 steps clear, hard enough to rock the frame. The torn brush guard finally collapsed completely to the gravel. It clawed across the hood looking for skin. I stepped in and fired through the open mouth. Immediate drop. 2 more burst from the brush, then 3, then more. They didn't cross the clearing. They input and stopped. Not gradual, not confused. Perfect halt. 8 visible. Maybe more behind them. No pacing, no snarling, just still. Heads angled, eyes fixed. Not on us, on the house. They weren't testing distance. They were holding position. I didn't go back to Henry to argue. I went back because I'd pushed too hard, and because men his age don't get many visitors who return twice in a week. He opened the door slower than usual, studied my face like he was checking for unfinished business. You forget something? No. He stepped aside without another word. The television was on, muted. International unrest rolling beneath footage of crowded airports and supply chain backlog. He didn't turn up the volume. I didn't comment. I set a small paper bag on the kitchen table. He glanced at it. Doctor says no. I know. Inside was smoked brisket from a place he used to drive 40 minutes for before his hands started shaking too much to hold a steering wheel steady. I opened it anyway. The smell filled the room immediately. He watched me take the first bite, not with hunger, with memory. You chew too fast, he said. I learned that somewhere. Probably somewhere loud. I didn't correct him. He moved toward the cabinet slowly, deliberate, conserving energy like someone who knows it's finite. He pulled out the chessboard without asking if I wanted to play. White pieces toward me, same as always. He opened with E4, predictable, comforting. We didn't talk about the bunker, not once. He talked about his brother instead, the one who built the mansion. He believed in concrete, Henry said. Believed if you poured something thick enough, the world couldn't move it. Did it work? I asked. He adjusted his rook carefully, hands steady for that, not steady for much else. No. He didn't elaborate. We played through the middle game in silence. He still saw patterns faster than most men half his age. Age had taken his strength, not his geometry. You see everything as positioning, he said without looking up. It usually is. Or you just need it to be. I moved my bishop, forced exchange. He leaned back slightly, considering. You ever think collapse doesn't need to be prepared for? He asked. No. That wasn't hesitation. It wasn't. He nodded once. That's what worries me. The second game, I won. The third, he abandoned halfway through. Not because he was losing, because he reached for a photo album instead. Black and white pictures. The mansion in its early years. Fresh paint, clean windows. Cars in the driveway that no longer exist anywhere. He tapped one image. That room there. Wine cellar. I didn't correct him. It had been more than that even then. You ever wonder why he built it that far outside town? I asked. Land was cheap. That's not why. Henry closed the album slowly. You think everything is strategy. Most things are. They aren't, he said quietly. Most things are just momentum. Silence followed that, not hostile, just layered. The television flickered again behind us. Overseas footage, medical tents, crowds. No panic here yet, just distance. He stood carefully and walked toward the back porch. I followed. Evening light settling heavy over the yard. He didn't sit, just stood, hands on the railing. You think it comes all at once? He asked. Collapse? Yes. No. He nodded slowly. It never does. We stood there without speaking, wind barely moving the tree line. You won't get the house, he said finally. Not angry, not defensive, just certain. I'm not asking. You were. Yesterday. He exhaled through his nose, almost a laugh. You prepare like it's already here. I prepare so it doesn't matter when it is. He didn't respond to that. Inside, the ticker scrolled another update. Shipping delays expanding. Hospital strain overseas. Nothing local yet. When I stood to leave, he didn't repeat the argument, didn't revisit the bunker, didn't bring up concrete or paranoia, just walked me to the door. Drive safe, he said. Not dramatic, not loaded, just practical. I drove back toward the mansion in fading light, gravel steady under the tires. The house came into view through the trees the way it always did. Decay on the outside, geometry underneath. The bunker systems would be running whether I was there or not. Water circulating, air filtering, power stable. I didn't turn on the interior lights when I stepped inside, just moved through the dark toward the basement door. The drive back to the mansion was uneventful. Gravel under the tires, tree shadow closing behind me. Henry's porch light stayed on until I cleared the bend. Then it vanished in the rearview mirror. The house looked like it always did. Peeling paint, sagging shutters, deliberate neglect. From the road, it signaled abandonment. That was the point. Underground, systems continued running whether anyone visited them or not. I didn't go down immediately. I sat at the kitchen table upstairs and opened my laptop instead. Civilian connection. Weak, but stable. I pulled up Bug Out Bros and scrolled past water purification reviews and field gear breakdowns until I landed on a long-form piece about food preparedness. Not flashy, no marketing tone, just data. Caloric density per cubic foot, oxidation timelines, micronutrient degradation curves. The math was solid, but it assumed stable stress. That's the flaw most civilian models make. Collapse isn't static. Adrenaline changes caloric burn. Sleep fragmentation alters hormone balance. Sodium requirements increase under prolonged alert states. I made mental adjustments. Protein to fat ratios, electrolyte buffers, morale sugars not as comfort, but as chemical stabilization. Short-term glucose spikes reduce perceived threat response. That matters. Temporary relief is still relief. The article treated morale food as optional. It isn't. It's neurochemistry. I closed the laptop and went downstairs. The bunker air felt insulated, not cold. Concrete absorbs echo, makes everything sound intentional. The screens activated before I touched them. No input, no wake delay. The global map was already expanded. Overseas outbreak markers had multiplied overnight. Supply chain strain flagged in orange. Hospital capacity stress in 3 new regions. I hadn't asked it to run anything. The dead project folder sat open in a side panel. I clicked it. New entries had populated since the previous night, time-stamped within 12 hours. No upload log, no visible source. Just correlation data layered against live mortality reports. The language had changed. Earlier entries used mild success. These used consistent neural response under conditional variables. No lab name, no researcher attribution. The system overlaid outbreak spread patterns against viability window projections. A percentage indicator climbed slowly in the corner of the display. 42, 46, 51. I hadn't initiated comparison. The system was running autonomous modeling. I opened the diagnostic panel. No intrusion alerts, no external logins, no secondary user activity. Network routing showed authorized channels across military and civilian feeds without handshake requests. It wasn't breaching, it was integrated. I searched system authorization credentials. Only one identifier listed: primary node active. No name attached. No location tag. The processing core temperature remained stable. Power output constant. No surge. No fluctuation. The outbreak map refreshed again. A US marker blinked once, then held. Southern Port City. The correlation percentage ticked upward again. 54. I didn't touch the controls. The system didn't slow. It wasn't waiting for permission. It was calculating trajectory. Global map open. Correlation percentage holding steady at 54. Primary node active remained in the system header. No alerts, no warnings, just processing. I stepped closer to the console. The dead project overlay continued modeling outbreak vectors against neural reactivation thresholds. The percentage ticked upward another fraction, 54.8. It wasn't dramatic, it was incremental. That's worse. The processing core temperature remained unchanged, power output steady, water pressure stable, air filtration cycling normally, everything in balance. Then the air changed, not temperature, pressure. A faint shift in tone from the ventilation ducts. I looked up. Airflow rate had increased by 15%. I hadn't touched environmental controls. The screen populated a new panel. Biosecurity protocol, passive engagement. No audible alarm, no flashing red, just presence. I pulled up system controls. Manual override grayed out. Access denied. That had not happened before. The lighting dimmed fractionally. Not enough to be dramatic, enough to register. The blast door at the far end of the bunker slid shut. Slow, deliberate. Magnetic seal engaged with a heavy mechanical thud that reverberated through the concrete. I hadn't issued that command. The armory compartment sealed next, then secondary storage. Compartmentalization sequence. The ventilation pitch increased again. The display split into quadrants. One quadrant showed exterior satellite imagery of the mansion grounds, tree line, driveway, roof line. Another quadrant displayed thermal mapping of the basement interior. A third showed global outbreak modeling. The fourth began populating local infrastructure data. Alexandria, hospital capacity, traffic density, EMS call volume spikes. I didn't input any of it. The system wasn't locking me out. It was isolating itself. Primary node active flickered once, then stabilized. A thin text line appeared beneath it. Threshold proximity, evaluating. I tried to access power core diagnostics, restricted. I tried to pull the network routing tree, restricted. The bunker lights dimmed another increment as if rerouting draw elsewhere. The ventilation shifted again. Negative pressure. Containment posture. My heart rate didn't spike. It narrowed. Decision funnel. If the system sealed fully, I could be trapped underground without manual override. That was unacceptable. I moved toward the mechanical emergency release panel mounted beside the blast door. Before I reached it, the door locks disengaged. Not opening, just disengaged, as if the system reconsidered. Airflow normalized gradually. Lighting returned to baseline. Compartment seals retracted in reverse order. Armory first. Storage. Finally, the blast door slid open again with controlled precision. The screens returned to the original configuration. Global map. Correlation percentage now at 56. Primary node active remained. No biosecurity panel. No containment banner. No log entry of what just occurred. I searched event history. Nothing. No record. The system had run a full containment simulation and erased its own footprint. The only persistent change was a new subheading beneath the Dead Project folder. Field Application Model, Standby. I hadn't opened that before. I hadn't triggered it. The bunker air was steady again. Water circulating. Power core silent, as if nothing had happened. But the system wasn't passive anymore. It was preparing. The bunker didn't feel different after the system reset. Lights steady, air balanced, water pressure stable. But primary node active remained at the top of the display, and beneath the Dead Project folder was a new line that hadn't existed before. Field Application Model, Standby. I stepped closer to the console. If the system believed something was coming, I needed to know why. I reopened the file. The layout shifted automatically. Archived cadaver trials populated the left panel. Neural stimulus thresholds, cortical response mapping, electrical reactivation cycles, post-mortem viability windows. The right side filled without instruction. Live global mortality data. Not headlines, raw numbers. Hospital overload ratios, emergency call spikes, regional infrastructure strain. The system wasn't searching, it was correlating. A new overlay formed across the center display. Reactivation probability versus mortality density. The graph rose slowly. No alarms, no flashing red, just a steady upward curve. Buried in a 1994 research log, full motor regression observed under specific cortical stimulation conditions. Sustained locomotion possible if structural integrity maintained. Another note, pain suppression reflex absent during induced reactivation window. Motor regression, sustained locomotion, no pain response. The modeling adjusted automatically. An urban density simulation rendered. 3 infected, 20 civilians, enclosed retail environment. Average civilian reaction time, 1.4 seconds. Average bite to fatality conversion, 100%. Secondary infection latency, variable. Projected fatality within 6 minutes, 83%. The silhouette staggered at first. Then the gait recalculated. Acceleration curve increased. The model snapped from stagger to sprint. Not faster than vehicles, faster than humans can sustain. No fatigue governor, no hesitation, no reconsideration. Obstacles added, store aisles, glass barriers, narrow exits. The infected collided, recovered, redirected. Average survival dropped to 9%. Another document surfaced. Autonomic response recorded 2.7 seconds post-mortem under controlled stimulation. Lab notes labeled Outcome unstable beyond 6 minutes. The system updated the annotation. Unstable under lab containment conditions. Environmental variables layered in: heat, adrenaline density, crowd panic, stress hormones. The reactivation window extended. Variable becomes adaptive. Transportation nodes loaded next. Highway congestion projections, fuel station clustering, gridlock probability curves. A single infected inside high-density traffic produced cascading exposure zones within 14 minutes. Vehicle abandonment projected at 22% within the first hour. Highways don't fail from destruction, they fail from paralysis. A restricted folder unlocked. Containment doctrine, civilian infrastructure. Rapid urban isolation. Transportation choke point lockdown. Media blackout modeling. Federalized resource seizure. Continuity of government nodes. Buried in the logic tree tied directly to this bunker, if mortality threshold exceeded and federal response lag detected, activate autonomous continuity shelter. Protocol, not panic. The system hadn't glitched earlier. It had simulated grid failure, hospital saturation, response delays, then stress tested this bunker against those models. It wasn't reacting to me, it was validating readiness. The correlation percentage ticked upward again, 57.3%. Incremental. No alarms, just movement. Collapse doesn't begin with sirens. It begins with shrinking margins. Regional mapping populated. Baton Rouge cluster probability rising. Houston corridor strain. Shipping delays feeding northbound supply lines. Alexandria highlighted in pale yellow. Not red, not yet. Arrival window estimated based on mortality velocity. The number populated. The house above creaked faintly in the wind. Peeling paint, sagging shutters, mildew crawling across brick. From the road, it looked forgotten. Beneath it, something built in the early 90s was running scenario modeling decades ahead of civilian systems in 2026. Live satellite feeds synchronized. Defense posture overlays updated in real time. Medical research threads merged with mortality data without manual command. The bunker wasn't dormant infrastructure. It was a node waiting for activation criteria. I closed the dead project. The interface reorganized instead of collapsing. Primary node active remained steady. Water pressure unchanged. Power core stable. Air filtration balanced. Everything ready. That's what unsettled me. The system wasn't escalating. It was calm. Calm means it believes the outcome is statistically plausible. If the dead project ever moved beyond controlled experimentation, if motor aggression and reactivation thresholds crossed into real-world conditions, then the world wasn't preparing for collapse. It was approaching it.
Thank you all for listening. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us, and I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed creating it. Episode 3 is coming soon, and things are only going to escalate from here. If you want to train, gear up, and stay prepared in the real world, check out bugoutbros.net. That's bugoutbros.net. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you know and keeps this mission moving forward. Stay ready, stay sharp. See you in the next one.